The Joe Rogan Experience.
The great and powerful Pat Miletich.
I don't know about that, but
You are. Listen, man, it's an honor to have you in here.
thank
honestly.
you.
All
Hey, you know
bullshit
what?
aside.
I've been watching your show for a long time, and you're a contrarian thinker. I love it, and you've prompted a lot of people to think differently, right?
Maybe. I think information prompts people to think differently. You know?
Well, when they get pounded with it enough and hear it enough,
Yeah.
eventually it starts to sink in, right?
Yeah, I think so, man. And when you talk about guys who have been around, like you are one of the real pioneers of MMA. You know, it's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you in here. I remember back when you were fighting. I remember back when you fought Matt Hume, and what was that like? And
Extreme Battlecade.
Yeah, that was John
Yeah.
Peretti's thing. I mean,
Right.
dude, you've been around. You've been around. You were the early days, bare knuckle.
Yeah, yeah. No, and the thing is, I always
Didn't you
tell
fight
people.
Dan Severn,
Yeah, we fought to a draw.
who was 270 pounds at the time?
Yeah, and he was still obviously pretty tough back then, still pretty mobile. It was not a fun fight, I can tell you, carrying his weight around for 30 minutes, but it was tough. But Matt Hume is the guy that made me realize that I wasn't a fighter yet, because I was 15-0. I think I was ranked 4th in the world. I fought Matt, ragdolled him for basically the whole first round, threw him around like a ragdoll, but he was just biding his time and waiting, and he caught me with some knees and damaged my nose. And the referee and the doctor stopped the fight, because back then it was very controversial. They didn't want a guy with a crushed nose or whatever. And so they stopped the fight. But I realized at that point he knew a lot more than I did.
Yeah, that was an interesting fight because I totally disagree with that stoppage. And I was watching, I was like, this is crazy. How
Right.
could you stop a fight for a broken nose?
Well, and I got headbutted. I used to spar with a lot of pro boxers, and I got headbutted by a pro boxer, and he separated the cartilage from the bone. So that gap is still there. So that's what they felt. My nose was bleeding a little bit, but so that's why they stopped it.
right,
so.
but broken noses are just
It
normal.
happens, right.
And it's not dangerous. It's like maybe somebody saw those movies where you like remember in a movie a guy would hit the bottom of a guy's nose and drive the bone up into his brain.
It's like Mike Tyson talking about it, right? I think
yeah, he did.
He hit him like this and push the bone up through the brain.
That might be the worst Mike Tyson impression I've ever heard. I'm gonna let that go though.
I'm doing my best, man.
Yeah, but back then, nobody really knew like what was dangerous, what wasn't dangerous. It wasn't like a body of fights that we could draw upon.
And I was doing televised debates with politicians at the time
Were you really?
to keep the sport legal in the state that I was scheduled to fight in. So think of how stressful it is to train for a fight, stay healthy, try and pay your bills, do all the stuff you're doing. And at the same time, I'm debating politicians in that state who are trying to pass a bill to ban the sport that I'm scheduled to fight in that state. I'm panicking. I'm freaking out. So I'd do my homework, and I'd get in debates like Representative Bolin from Illinois. By the time we got done with the debate, he goes, I'll agree with Mr. Miletich. He's obviously, I think they expected to go into a debate with a punch-drunk boxer.
Right.
And by the time the debate was done, I'd crushed him, and he's like, well, maybe if we could just do away with headbutts. That was his rebuttal at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I see how they think, and I see that thought, but I think today, even to this day, I don't mind headbutts.
I don't either, because you train for them.
Yeah.
If they're legal, that's what you're training for.
And it's a legit technique. Like, why is it okay to slam your elbow into someone's face, but it's not okay to slam your forehand into someone's face?
Right.
And it's very effective. If a guy's tying you up in the guard and his head's right there, and you can do that,
Right.
and he can't really do it back to you.
I watched when I was in my first no holds barred tournament in Chicago. God, I don't even remember the name of it anymore. It's been so long. But I saw a guy get headbutted 42 times in the first round, and he ended up winning with a triangle.
Wow.
He ended up winning the fight. It was Marcel Lovrich versus this guy named Johnson, Mike Johnson, I think his name was. Marcel Lovrich ends up losing after crushing him with headbutts. Mike Johnson's in the shower. They're running cold water on him, trying to wake him back up, and he collapses, and they have to throw in an alternate. Right?
Wow.
But it was, headbutts obviously were legal then. So.
Wow. Yeah, headbutts, like, that was Mark the Hammer Coleman's
Knees on
move.
the ground.
Knees on the ground, knees
Right.
to the head on the ground.
Yeah.
But, I mean, think about when Coleman was in his prime, he was all about headbutts. And when he fought Maurice and he took Maurice down, that was back in the days when headbutts were legal.
Yeah.
Maurice Smith, he defended against all that.
Doing all of this.
Yeah, it's just another technique.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but without that technique, it's sort of like when I when I realized that Taekwondo was very limited was when I started working out with kickboxers. And I started getting punched in the face, and I was like, "Oh no! Like, what have I learned? I've learned this, thing that is only good if somebody doesn't punch you in the face. Like, this is terrible."
But you were an open thinker, obviously, and you realized. So the thing was, with early MMA, everybody was so tied to their technique. It's like being tied to a religion and
Right.
refusing to see something else.
Yeah,
right?
there was a lot of that.
So guys who are Taekwondo experts, wrestlers, this, that, they were so attached to their art that they refused to learn anything else, and they just die because of it.
Yeah.
Right? They get crushed because of it. And I just early on went, these guys are dumbasses. Why wouldn't you want to know how to do
Yeah.
a lot of things? You got to have a big toolbox.
Well, there
right?
was always a lot of pride in your art, right? There was always a lot of guys like wrestlers who were only into wrestling, or kickboxers only into Muay Thai. They just want to stand
Right.
up. They didn't want to go to the ground. They just
Yeah.
wanted to stand up. And that just costs you in the long run, especially when you see like a real complete fighter, like a guy like Mighty Mouse. Like a guy like Mighty Mouse is the top of the heap.
Trained by Matt Hume, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And he can do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a wrestler. It doesn't matter if you're a kickboxer. You're fucked. You're fucked everywhere with that guy.
Yeah.
And it's because he's got this just incredibly well-rounded skill sets. And I think the days of the specialists, I think, they're still kind of here.
I'm
There's still a
surprised
few
that that's
guys.
still the case.
Yeah, there's a few guys that can still pull it off. But the guys that can pull it off are like the Damian Mayas
Right.
or the Wonder Boys.
Yeah.
Like Wonder Boy's just such an elite striker. That is, if he can keep the fight standing, he can kind of work a lot of guys.
And because so many guys have not done karate and things like that,
Right.
he's like a Rubik's Cube they can't figure out.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he's long in that weird sideways stance with that front leg.
Yeah.
The guys who have a good front leg, like that karate style, point fighting style, that they're used to blitzing in with that good front leg, very hard to gauge that distance.
Yeah.
So different.
Yeah.
I think Woodley did the best job of anybody in fighting him. And I think that's like a roadmap for it because like people booed Woodley and gave Woodley a lot of shit. But look, Woodley's the one who hurt him in both fights.
Right.
And that's the way you got to fight that guy. You can't just charge after that guy. You
And the
get countered.
criticisms of Woodley, in my mind, I think, look, it's a two-man dance, right? Woodley kept his title.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's all that matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm the champ, I'm just trying to keep my title. I'm doing enough to win. I'm not there to be the most exciting fight. That was my mentality because I knew because I fought totally different before I got to the UFC. I was just a psychopath and go out and just go 100 miles an hour until the guy was done.
Right.
But once you get in the UFC, then it's, okay, we can cut you if you lose.